Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 6, Episode 25. It is called Timescape. So, full spoilers for the episode. This episode is about, time anomalies, effectively. I was actually questioning as the episode started, because it effectively had two big scenes before the title screen. And I actually, as the episode went on, I understood why they did this, but I was questioning getting into the title screen why they had both, because I thought it was a little bit jarring that we have this opening, which starts off with a little comical bit with Riker and Crusher, as you do, but then it ends with, oh, we're going to see the Romulans, but red alert, because this could be dangerous, red alert, and then it goes to like Picard's little team on the runabout, and like they're doing impressions, they're doing accents, and they're just like chilling. And I thought it was a really weird, like, I was like, why don't you just go to the title screen? But then the cliffhanger at the end of that scene is definitely the bigger one. It's definitely more interesting. So I understand why. And I was thinking at the moment, well, why not push the Riker stuff until after the opening? But then obviously as the episode went on, it was clear that we were never going to see them again until these characters saw them again. So I get it. It was just kind of weird in the moment.
I still think you probably should have just left the second scene till after the titles. Cutting to red alert is a perfectly fine.
That's fine, yeah.
Moment. Like it would have worked. No one's watching that and then leaving during the opening title sequence.
Oh, for sure, yeah. But that's basically the extent of my nitpicks, because I thought this was a great little episode. What did you think?
I did as well. I thought it was pretty excellent. I think my one critique, if I can have it that way, is I think it took a little while to establish to us what the rules were a little bit, because at the start it felt like it was only affecting Troy specifically. There was two examples of the time anomaly, both affecting Troy one way and then the other, and It felt weird that it felt like it was specific to her as opposed to, oh, she was just in the wrong spot.
I don't know if I completely agree with that, because to me the second thing, so let's explain what's happening here. So Troy's sitting at the table with Picard, with Geordi, and Data, and they've been away at a conference thing for a few days, and they're talking. Troy does a very offensive accent. I don't wish to talk about it. How dare she? And then Picard does Transylvania, I think was he was. I don't know if that's what he was going for, but that's certainly what it sounded like to me.
It is, yeah.
And then everyone pauses, like everyone, people are talking, Geordi's in the middle of a story, and three of them pause as if they're frozen in time, except Troy. And Troy's like, what the hell? And she's starting to freak out. And then it's only maybe about 10 seconds, and then they all start moving again, as if it was literally paused for them. And she's experienced these seconds, but they didn't. And they're like, wait, why are you standing up? Why are you looking weird? And that's the cliffhanger to go to the title. The second thing that happens is they're sitting down talking about this. Obviously, they've scanned her to see if there's anything wrong with her. They've scanned themselves. Is there anything wrong with us? And the second time, and I really like this actually, is that she's talking, and then all of a sudden, there's just a hand being waved in her face. And I don't think it's saying it's something specific with her. To me, I just got that, no, she's experienced what they experienced before. It's just more like heightened because everyone else is around her going, hey, why did you pause? What's going on?
I think it's a combination of, because I agree, I actually like the way it's presented.
It's a different perspective, because the first time you saw it from the perspective of the person who didn't pause, and then this time you see it from the perspective of someone who did pause. They just both happen to be Troy.
That's the problem. The fact that both times it's Troy and it's her perspective we're with makes it feel like it sets it up like it's a problem with her.
Okay. All right, even if you think that, though, I think as soon as they say it's like the engines have been on for 47 weeks or whatever they said, I think that's the moment you realise it's just different pockets of the ship that's going through a different time.
No, that's fair. I think it's days, because weeks would have been extreme. But
yeah, whatever it was. And then the fruit in the table like is rotted as if, and I'm like, wait a minute, like while they've been in the cockpit, has that back area like been moving through like
47
months?
days,
or 47 days, yeah, since that's what they said on the engines. So I was like, okay, this is quite interesting. We're doing some time anomalies, and I think what's really neat about it is that it keeps expanding, and then when you get to what the rest of the episode is really about, is all these ones on here were really cool and creepy and have a good little vibe and creepy atmosphere to them. And then once they actually get to the Enterprise, which the opening scene established, the Enterprise wasn't going to be at the rendezvous point because they got that distress call from the Romulans, and they're like, oh, maybe they're in danger because they've waited to see Romulans. And all I'm thinking for that first, 15 minutes of the episode, whatever it is, I'm thinking, oh, they're away doing something else. So they're just not going to be there to save these guys. So it's going to have to be these four figuring this out, whatever it is.
It's the typical episode of, let's just get everyone out the way. Oh, yeah. Picard's on holiday. Whatever.
Yeah. But of course, they eventually find the Enterprise and discover that, at least at first glance, it looks like the Enterprise and this Romulan ship are in the middle of a battle, because there's beams going both ways, but they're completely frozen in time. And it's like, holy shit, what's going on here? And when they first of all figure out how the time bubble that's happening doesn't affect them, there's some doohickey talk with the armbands. It's like, okay, now we can be on board the Enterprise and not be affected and not freeze in time, which they do. And it's like this puzzle we get to piece together, because it's like, okay, it looks like there's 3 Romulans on the bridge, one's standing over Riker who's on the ground as if he's attacked him, and so on and so on.
It's like a murder mystery.
Yeah, but with a lot of big time mechanics, which is really fun.
I kind of love the like I say, that murder mystery angle, or at least there is no murder, so to speak, but the style, it's aping those styles of TV shows and stories. I kind of loved that.
Yeah, I just loved the vibe of it. It was kind of creepy, everyone being frozen. Every time it did the establishing shot of the 2 ships frozen in time, it felt like, if they even fix this though, it's instant disaster. And even more so when they find the warp cores ruptured, and it's literally effectively a big nuclear explosion is going to happen. And it's actually, time is moving forward, just very, 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 very slowly. And obviously an explosion happens quite quickly, so that's going to happen in a matter of 9 hours, data says. So
yeah, and it's when Picard says, well, how do we fix this? And there's like, well, you don't. It's the explosion's already happened. We're just seeing it in slow motion.
Yeah. All that stuff's really interesting. I was getting an interest. This was with Romulans, this previous episode, but it was making me think, especially when a Romulan starts to move, they're pretending to be still. It was making me think, remember that episode where the Romulans had been developing technology, and I think it was Geordi and Loren who were moving around like ghosts.
When they were like floating through the walls and stuff. Yeah, I can see that. And
then halfway through, it turned out it was a Romulan walking around with them and not the rest of it. It kind of reminded me of that. Obviously, it turns out not to actually be a Romulan. It's just another alien pretending to be a Romulan. But maybe think of that.
Pretty effective, creepy stuff though. So when they're walking through the scene, everyone's frozen, and they turn, and I think it's the woman. She just walks off.
Yeah, she sort of looks around and is like, "Oh, that's creepy." Crusher's been hit with a phaser blast, and it does. All of this does look like the Romulans are killing people on the Enterprise. Like Riker's down, she's been shot. Everything's
That's what
going
it looks
on.
like. Nothing they learn points to that. They're talking about energy transfers, and it by all accounts of what they can tell, it seems like they were working together. Except you see the visuals of well, it looks like they're all attacking each other right now.
It looks very suspicious. So they're trying to figure this all out. And on top of that, once they've been here for a little while, Picard starts freaking out and laughing.
Absolute fit of mania. Yeah.
In fact, he draws a smiley face in the explosion because it's expanding slowly. And he draws it in the cloud of the explosion.
These are the moments where I'm like, oh yeah, Patrick Stewart's a great actor. We all know he can deliver a monologue and just be great. But when he pulls this moment completely out of character, and it's it works and it's creepy, that's where you're like, oh yeah, he can pull it off.
Yeah, and this is basically here to say, they're not completely protected with these armbands. This is getting to them in a way, so they have to limit their exposure to 10 minutes at a piece. And Picard doesn't even go on the next trip to the Romulan ship to see what's happening on that ship, to see if that explains anything, because it turns out the beam that's going from the Enterprise to the Romulan ship isn't a blast. It isn't like a photon or anything. It's an energy transfer, and they're trying to figure out what that is. And then all this turns out to be is that they were trying to help the Romulans who had an engine failure, because the Romulans use effectively fake singularities, or artificial, maybe is a better term, use artificial singularities in their engines to power things, which sounds quite epic. That's a black hole in your engine to make it power.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
So Data's explaining all this, and it turns out that this alien race who sort of exists in a different time plane from us, they hibernate their young as if it's like a nest in singularities, and they mistakenly put it in the Romulan one thinking that would suffice when they usually use normal real black holes. And unfortunately, everything the Romulans and the Enterprise are doing are going to kill their young, which is why they have intervened in the energy transfer and it's actually the explosion on the Enterprise of their warp core going that's made time freeze like this. That's what's caused the chaos.
It's moments like this that I think put this episode into the truly great tier, because just that idea there has a lot of things that the episode could delve into in terms of you're paralleling with humans, what we do to the planet, and and how we affect other species. But it's like it's almost nothing in this episode, and not in a bad way. Like not in a this is what they should have been exploring instead, but almost it's just extra levels of stuff that's there on top of an already. The
actual episode. Figuring out the mechanics of this are so interesting and take up so much of the time that they do not have time to get into the minutia of that side of it.
There's entire movies dedicated to just that one idea.
And they totally could follow up if they wanted to. I don't think they will, but they totally could. It's interesting because there are some things, like, the whole thing where it makes you go crazy if you're overexposed to this alternate time, like Picard starts to before they leave and go back to the runabout. I was kind of thinking at the end of the episode, like, I don't know if you even needed that. I mean, it's a fun moment, but like, I don't know if it really played into anything later on with like them having to like time how long they're at either of the ships.
I think it's more mechanically to reduce the cast even more. Like, so we start with 4, and then that essentially removes Picard from a lot of it, and then in the next away mission you remove Geordi.
True, yeah. And then it's just down to Deanna.
I think it's more just about whittling it down and adding to that pressure of, okay, it's down to you two now.
I can see that. Yeah, Geordi. So there's 2 aliens here, presumably a mother and a father, and I'm just assuming that because one's a male Romulan, one's a female Romulan, but they're not really Romulans, but that's the forms that they've taken. And the guy Romulan on the Romulan ship jumps at Geordi, and it basically affects Geordi, and he's starting to like go into a seizure, and Deanna rips off his armband that protects him from freezing, because our logic is, well, at least now he's frozen. When we fix all this, he can get medical attention properly in the med bay, because right now we can't really do anything. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But it adds more stakes, because now it's not just everything else. It's like, oh no, Geordi, who was on the team solving things, is now dying effectively.
Yeah, and we've already seen, Crush is going to be disintegrated if we don't save her.
Yeah, so they have to make this choice of like, okay, because there's like a weird thing that happens here just before Geordi gets hurt, where they kind of have time go forward and speed up a little bit, and then it reverses back to where it was. So it basically gives them an idea of like, okay, can we repeat that but inverse it to make time go backwards and then go forwards? Because if we go backwards enough, we can stop the explosion from happening, and then we can then the accident won't happen and this won't start. So
I actually really love that moment. You got Picard on the other ship just watching, because this is after his burst of mania, and he just watches the other ship explode with the 2 people, or 3 people that he knows are still functioning, seemingly just exploded on.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, never mind, they're back, everything's fine. That's a hell of a roller coaster.
Oh yeah, he's going through the ringer in that moment, thinking he's been left alone in a shuttle with nothing to do. Also, these little shuttles seem to have gotten a lot bigger on the inside than previous episodes.
It definitely used to feel like it was just a cockpit for 2 people, and then you walk back and it was like not much space at all, and then you went out. Like it was like just a bed at the back almost, is what it felt like before.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to when like Picard was with Wesley in one, and they were traveling to something. Like it was just this, it was effectively a one room with a cockpit at the front kind of thing.
It felt like they were in a little car.
Yeah. Whereas here it's like, no, there's a meeting room at the back now, where they can have dinner. So it's like, okay,
they've upgraded from a little, little 3-seater to like an RV.
Yes, that's the equivalent. But no, all the figuring stuff out is really fun. I like the creepy vibes. I love the going around, everyone's silent, and then just kind of when time does reverse and you see it all kind of go backwards, you then see how all the little moments individually happen. Riker gets knocked over, and the Romulan who's gone over to him isn't threatening him. He's actually going out to give him his hand to help him up. The Romulan is shooting at Crusher. It turns out she's not shooting at her. He was shooting at the alien, pretending to be a Romulan.
And Crusher just happened to get in the way.
Yeah, so all these little things are kind of explained, and it's like there's never actually any hostility from the Romulans themselves in this. And I think the episode sets you up to think that there will be, because obviously Riker thinks there will be. He's like, no, red alert, just in case. We have to do the right thing, but they're dangerous.
It's not just this episode; it's our entire history as a viewer with the Romulans sets us up for that, and Picard and the others come in and like, have Romulans? Well, this is suspicious because they're not in the neutral zone or in Romulan space; they're in Federation space. At least I'm assuming so, because they escort them back to the
they say that at the end.
Zone at the end.
I think it's there to remind you of the threat that they pose, and that's how the characters are thinking. And then obviously, there's never actually anything in the episode where they've actually done anything threatening. It just looks like it a lot of the time.
Yeah, so. And I think it says ultimately a lot of good things about the Enterprise crew in that, hey, these are Romulans. These are essentially the enemy. They've made an invasion into our space, but we're still helping them out.
Maybe you could argue that if there's a logic, say for Riker, he doesn't say this out loud, but maybe some of the logic is, well, they're willingly admitting they're here, which might mean they're actually in trouble.
Really bad. Yeah.
So maybe that's like a comfort almost.
And there is some some humanity in the fact that he's like, well, let's not just let them suffer. Even if they are the enemy, let's help them. Even in shipwreck, it's like, I don't know. Let's get them up and running. We'll take them back out, but let's not just let them die.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. I didn't even mention the moment where Picard goes to pick up the rotten fruit in his hand, ages like, as if it's been like a month, and his fingernails all grow out, and it's like, this hurts.
yeah, I bet it does.
Well, that's the thing. Data explained that it's like a time bubble that's expanding from the back of the ship, and I legitimately thought at this point, this is going to be them trying to survive. Is the space on the ship they can be in? Like, it's an invisible wall almost that's expanding. I was like, that sounds like a great little episode. I'm into this shit. And then obviously it keeps getting bigger and does all this other stuff with the explosion. So
I think that's what's so impressive about this episode. There's definitely some episodes where it has a concept, and you watch it and you're like, we how many reviews have we said? Well, there was this idea that it kind of pokes out, but it doesn't do anything with, and it was disappointing. In this one, there are so many ideas that it pokes out and it could have done things with, but ultimately it was so satisfying with what it did choose to do that the things that it pokes at and doesn't do isn't a detriment to it. Instead, it's just these extra little ideas instead.
Yeah. So they explore a little bit with Data and the perception of time. How because he's got like an actual chronometer in his head, he doesn't actually. He never like perceives time differently depending on how he feels. Not that Data feels anything. And they kind of play with that with him watching a kettle to boil at the end. To go with the old saying.
The Riker's like, well, we'll just turn it off. But don't be late, because you turn that off and you can be late now.
Yeah. Also, Riker's scared of Data's cat.
Because cats are awful, like Riker says.
No, cats are not awful.
I've never been more on Riker's side than that moment.
I know, Crusher's on my side here in this scene. But he's got a big scratch at the start, and she's like, you can't keep doing dangerous stuff like you're 21. And she thinks he's doing like, you're doing stuff with Worf, you're doing like Klingon shit. Oh no, you're doing this dangerous stuff. And he's like, I was feeding Data's cat.
Hey, cats are vicious.
Cats are not vicious, but I did like him he had the fear in his eye when he was coming in at the end. He was like, where's that cat? He's asleep.
I get it. I have to check every time I walk into my own room when I get home. I'm like, are you in here? Some nights he is, and he scratches.
It's fine. Just a little cat scratch.
Yeah, but do you know what would be better? Not having a cat scratch.
A little cat scratch. Yes. So, they had the start with the accents and stuff. Deanna does a drunk Scotsman. Picard does a Transylvania. I appreciated Data not getting what she was saying, because she's like, because basically the guy was trying to hit on her by saying, "Oh, I study interspecies, relationships. Would you like to do a bit of a study with me?" And the point being, he's basically trying to say, "Hey, let's have sex for science, not because I'm a creep, but for science." And Data just at the end of the story goes, "Well, did you help him?" He says, "I absolutely did not, but you're very interested in that subject."
He's not wrong.
I got a little chuckle at that.
It played true, right? That's definitely the sort of line that feels realistic, that someone definitely tried to pick her up with.
Oh, sure, yeah. A science convention, because she said it's like 400 scientists all went to this thing. Yeah, I can picture it. And honestly, her accent wasn't terrible, although there is something that I've noticed, that when people are trying to do Scottish accents, a lot of people who try and do one, who don't obviously naturally have one, for some reason have to do it really slow, and it makes them sound like a drunk Scottish person as opposed to just a Scottish person.
You're not wrong. I think it's probably people who aren't familiar with doing the accent having to think about it, and that slows them down.
Yeah, but that just makes him sound drunk to me. But hey, not that he was supposed to be Scottish. She said he was something else, but that was clearly a Scottish accent.
It was, yeah.
And regardless of what Patrick Stewart says he was doing, that was Dracula.
Well, I believe Patrick Stewart can pull off any accent that he wants to, so he was aiming for that.
Oh, okay. You know what? Maybe he was. Maybe he was just having a bit of fun. Who's to say that this alien dude in the future does not have a Transylvanian Dracula-esque voice?
How do we know it wasn't Dracula?
He's immortal.
Exactly.
We did have an episode with Jack the Ripper in the original series, so why not?
We can't rule it out.
We can't rule out Dracula. Very good point. Now, this is a really entertaining, solid, fun sci-fi concept episode. It has some bigger ideas kind of sprinkled throughout, but the core mechanics of the fun of it never really let up, and are fun throughout. So, I had a good time.
There are two types of great episodes of this show. One is the character episodes, and two is the mechanics episodes. And this is definitely in that latter one. And it, when you have an episode like this, it's often either it's great or it's just okay. There's often not a lot of in between, because it depends on how it plays with that mechanic, and it's less about what it does in terms of its message and more about just being entertaining. And this one is incredibly entertaining, so it definitely succeeds.
Yeah, because I wasn't. Towards the end of the episode, when they're reversing time, the female alien tries to stop Data.
Yeah,
and I did question why is she trying to stop him a little bit, and I could have to think about it and watch the episode again to sort of just understand her motivation in that moment. Because surely this also, because the aliens themselves are trying to stop the energy beam, right? That's why they have the Romulan ship fire on the Enterprise. They're trying to stop the transfer of the energy because that'll kill the young. And that's also what Data's trying to do. So I was a little conflicted in the moment as to why she was doing that.
Yeah, the answer is drama.
Okay.
But this is what I mean. These types of truly mechanical episodes that are just designed around the conflict of the concept, the motivations, for our characters or the antagonists don't really matter. They're not the point.
I mean,
it's whether or not it succeeds in being entertaining.
Or I think the real answer is that she rushes in like she was always going to, and thought Data was just transferring the energy like the guy who was standing there a second ago was. That's probably the answer. But like in the moment, I was like, why is she stopping them? They're literally helping. They're saving your kids right now.
Especially as there's a level of, when you stop to think about it, she's been watching them pretty much this entire time. She seems to be immune to the effects of the time bubble based on being this other species. She should know that they're trying to stop it, right? In theory. Just don't think too hard about it.
I had a good time. I'm just, you could poke a little hole here or there if you really want to.
You can, yeah.
But that is Timescape. That is the penultimate episode of the season. But we'll be back with Deep Space Nine next. And then we'll be on, it's the finale for Deep Space Nine next, I believe. And then we're on to the finale of season 6 of Next Generation. So it's good. It pays to have a good episode towards the end because we remember it better. Get into the top 5 that we always do between seasons.
We do. This definitely has top 5 potential, right? It'll be in the conversation.
It'll definitely be in the conversation, no doubt about it. So the next episode is called Descent, and it doesn't say part 1 on IMDb, but
it did on my Netflix.
Yeah, it does in my longer list, actually. So I think they may have done this last time, actually, where the finale just said the title, and then the first episode of the next season said that part 2, but they never said part 1 in the first one.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I think they did that last time as well. So anyway, Descent. After an encounter with the Borg, Data feels his first emotion when he gets angry with the Borg. Data then tries to find ways to recreate the situation in order to feel emotions again, whilst the Enterprise investigates the Borg activity and are bewildered as to why they feel emotions too. Ooh.
Okay, I'm very interested. Although...
Intrigued.
I just want to say, I know those are not officially written log lines, but that was really badly written.
Honestly, this is the only one. This is in all the seasons we've done of this, where I read the description of the next episode. This is the only one that was long enough I had to click on the show more to see the rest of it. So I've got a feeling that for whatever reason, this one doesn't have the official sentence that goes with most of them.
It showed immediately for me. It's not how long it was. It was right at the start where it was like, after an encounter with the Borg, Data was angry at the Borg.
Yeah. I'm just using that to show that there was a sign something was up with the description before I even got to reading it.
I could tell.
Yeah, but all the same. I mean, there's also like a full one that seems to be a scene-by-scene breakdown. I'm not going to read that for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Well, let's just ruin the next episode right now. I'm looking forward to that. That sounds pretty good.
I'm also noticing Stephen Hawking in the cast list for the next one, so we'll see how that goes.
Oh, I did know he had an appearance in one episode.
Oh, really?
At some point. It was one of those things. Honestly, I think it was one of those things that came up when he died.
Ah, okay.
Of like, oh yeah, he was in Star Trek at some point, and it was just vaguely in my head.
I hope that wasn't like Stephen Hawking, known for being in Star Trek. Like, I hope that wasn't the first thing on the list.
It was definitely not. It was just one of those random thing. I think it was like a list of like some famous people who are scientists who have been in Star Trek, and obviously he was there.
So that's coming up next time. But we got Deep Space Nine for season finale next, so look forward to that. But let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments, and of course you can support all the content and help keep it coming over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But that is the show. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and somewhere out there, suspended forever in time,
we can only hope,
is Wesley Crusher.